too far past this yesterday. So we went over the acronym yesterday. I think you got all that down, right? Okay, good. Okay. Keep in mind that what you see up there on the screen, a little bit kind of like an overview of the time period. These are a lot of the major topics we're going to talk about. Okay. It's certainly not all of them, but and remember the purpose behind this is so when you get a short answer question or an essay, you will have some of the stuff in your head that you can throw down as evidence. Okay. So art and technology, and then here is your evidence right here of those things. Okay. The Parthenon, Colosseum, aqueducts, roads, paper. There's other things too, obviously, but these are specific examples, okay, of art and technology. Trade networks. Those are a huge topic on the AP exam. So you need to always be ready to give examples of trade networks, and these are the main ones right here: the Silk Road, the Indian Ocean, the Trans-Saharan, the Mediterranean Sea. There's some others, but those are the main ones right there. So kind of keep those in mind. The Silk Road. What two areas does it link together? The Far East to what? Okay, good. So I say Eastern Europe or the Middle East. Good. Okay. The Indian Ocean. Wow. Think about all the places that it connects. Okay. It connects East Africa. Okay. To South Asia, to China over there. Okay. It's a very vast area. The Trans-Saharan. What two regions does it connect? Sub-Saharan Africa to North Africa. Good. Okay. The Mediterranean Sea. North Africa to Southern Europe. Don't forget, it's Asia as well. Okay, it connects to Asia. The Eastern Mediterranean, like Turkey, that's part of Asia there. So yeah, three continents are connected by the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on. The bookends. Okay, the bookends. The opening bookend is where we left off with period one. Your River Valley civilizations are gone, with the exception of China, that continues. But the things those River Valley civilizations discovered, what they invented, like writing or how to work with iron, those things survived them. Calendar systems. And so that's going to allow your period two civilizations to get a head start. The period two civilizations don't have to think of those things on their own or invent them. They've already been invented. And iron's probably the most important thing. I'm going to show you a map. Did I show you the map yesterday? Comparing period one and period two? Okay. Well, we're going to see it. We're going to see it right now. Don't freak out, because if you're still writing, this is going to come back. Okay. But look at this map right here. This map is period one. Okay. So for the dates down here, I know it's kind of tiny, but it says 800 to 750 BCE. So this is getting near the end of period one, but you're not quite there yet. That period one ends in 600 BCE. So here up on the map, there's the Zhao. Do you remember what the Zhao invented? Not paper. We went over it yesterday. The cycle, yeah. What's it called? Mandate of heaven. Good. Okay. And every dynasty after that will adhere to it or believe it. Okay. Then over here you've got your Phoenicians up in this area here. That's where Carthage is. Okay. There's Egypt right there. Okay, and the Greeks right here. Okay. So this is period one, and so keep your eye on the map. And period two. This is right in the middle of period two. Okay. And so there's the Han Empire over here. Okay. India. You can look at the Roman Empire. Look at Rome. Rome encompasses the entire what? Yeah, exactly. There's a saying that the Mediterranean was a Roman lake because Rome completely surrounded it. That's pretty amazing when you think about all the different countries and languages and religious groups that are here today. So, in North Africa, you've got Libya and Egypt, and, over here you've got Syria, and you've got Turkey, and you've got the Balkan Peninsula here with Greece and Albania and all the others, and then Italy and France and Spain and Portugal. But Rome controlled all of this back then, okay, all under one government. And so again, you can just see how much bigger they are. Okay, and this is mainly due to iron. Okay, and so your closing bookend for the time period. It's very similar to your opening bookend. It's slightly different though. It's not. It's the empires that have collapsed, not the civilizations. So in other words, the political leaders or structures have collapsed. And the reason why they collapse is they have these things in common. Now, I want to make sure you're clear on something. These things that they have in common, yes, they're in common, but they vary by degree. So, for example, invasion by nomads. It was worse for some of those empires and not as bad for others. Now they were all they all had to deal with the barbarians that were invading, but they, like, for example, those barbarians really hurt the Gupta Empire and hurt the Roman Empire, but it didn't hurt the Han dynasty that much. Other things were more important to the fall of the Han dynasty. Political corruption, that we talked a little bit about that yesterday in dealing with the mandate of heaven. Political corruption is when the leaders in the government begin to focus on themselves, okay, and not the people, not doing right by the people. Disease. Disease leads right into the second one right here, because disease kills off people. When you have less people, you're going to have less taxes. And think about what that does to the government. When the government has less taxes, then it can't pay for as many soldiers. It can't pay for as many weapons. And so that makes it easier for what to happen? Right here, invasion, right here. Okay. And so if the Romans, they end up getting the last thing to hit the Romans is the barbarian invasions. But if Rome was in its prime, those barbarians would have been nothing to Rome, okay? But these other things had weakened Rome, and then the barbarians come in and just kind of blow them over. Okay, Rome wasn't what it used to be. They're going to be, yeah. Okay. All right, moving on here. So nothing to write, just take a look at this, okay? Let's show me what you know. What social structure is this system part of? It's the caste system. Good. It's the caste system. Okay. Good. All right. What belief system is it tied to? Hinduism. Good. Now, there is a missing layer. Okay. Does anybody know what it's called and where that missing layer would be? Yes. Good. The Dalits, also known as the Untouchables. That's right. And then where would they be? Good. And so there they are right there. Okay. Good. Right there. And I'll tell you a quick true story here. It was my second or third year teaching. I think I was like 24, 25 years old. I was teaching seventh grade. It was open house night, and we had a lot of parents waiting to talk to all of us teachers, and we also had like that open classroom concept, so we didn't have walls or anything like that. And I had a long line of parents, and I spotted this guy in the line, and when he got up to me, he was probably about that tall. He had to be in his late 60s, if not 70s. Very thin, glasses. He had a long beard, kind of more salt than pepper, a lot more salt than pepper. Long hair off to the side, same color, bald on top. He was South Asian, and when he got up to me, he started bowing to me. It really kind of like freaked me out a little bit, kind of because in Western culture, especially, and also Eastern cultures, even more so in Eastern culture, you respect your elders, okay? And this man was old enough to be my grandfather, okay? And he's bowing to me, and I'm like, no, stop. And he said, no, you're a teacher, okay? You're a teacher, and he was putting me here, okay? This is where, like, your educated intellectuals, teachers, priests, that's where they fall. And that's why, and he was bowing to me, kind of showing me his culture that way. But again, that was kind of, I told him, I said, no, I should be bowing to you. But no. So it was kind of neat. All right, moving on here. Okay, so this caste system, it was brought into India by the Aryans. When they came in, they created this system. They placed themselves on top. Now, that last little sentence up there says merchants are highly valued. I want to be careful how you read that. Um, when we say merchants are highly valued in this context, we don't mean that they're at the top of the caste system here. And I'll go back and show you where they are, but they're not at the bottom though, and that's going to be important because we're going to talk about another civilization here in just a second that did put merchants on the bottom. I'm just going to jump back real quick so you can see this. Okay, here's where your merchants would be. Okay, right here in this group right here. Okay, all right. But they're not down here, and they're certainly not part of the untouchables either. So they're kind of like in this group, and this right in here. Okay, your farmers are here. Okay, your peasants, your farmers, they fall into this group right here. Okay, the Sudras. All right. So back to this. Okay, over in the Mediterranean region, the Greeks and the Romans really made slavery a huge deal. Now, every civilization used slavery. Okay, everyone used it. But kind of like I've already told you, the Aztecs took human sacrifice to a whole new level. Well, the Greeks and the Romans really took slavery to a whole new level. That was their answer to most every engineering problem. If you needed to build a road or an aqueduct or a coliseum, just go get some more slaves. Okay, just go get some more hands. Okay, to help build it. Whereas in say maybe China or in South Asia or the Middle East, the answer might have been let's invent some kind of labor saving device. And so a lot of historians point to the fact that the Greeks and the Romans, when you compare their technology to say that of the Chinese were more advanced in production technology. And they believe that the reason why the Greeks and the Romans weren't as advanced is because they didn't try. They were like, we just get some more slaves. What do you mean? We don't need to invent anything. We have plenty of slaves. And also please keep in mind, guys, slavery in the Mediterranean has nothing to do with skin color whatsoever. They're not going to Africa and getting. Sure, there were some North African slaves, I'm sure, okay, and maybe even a few sub-Saharan African slaves. But for the most part, they're grabbing slaves from Europe and from Western Asia, but they're not getting them from sub-Saharan Africa. So don't think it has anything to do with skin color. Now, China did have some slaves, but private individuals, the rich people, they had very few slaves, and the slaves they had were, go ahead, like domestic servants, house servants. So I should probably write it up here, but I'm going to let you figure it out because fourth period figured this out. If it says China had slaves, but few slaves were owned by private individuals, then where were most of the slaves in China? But not the farms, because the farms would be owned by the people, probably. What? You might have some in a palace. You might be getting closer to the answer, but what about the slaves that might be like working in the mines, like mining for salt or mining for copper, okay, or later on mining for iron? If they're not owned by private individuals, who owns them? The government. The government. Okay. In China, the government owned the slaves. Okay. And you did have some that were owned by what you might think of as rich people, but most slaves in China were owned by the government. All right, moving on here. Now, this is what we're going to spend some time on, okay? Because this is going to be hard for you to understand this, okay? In China, merchants were at the bottom of their social ladder, of their social pyramid. And it's because of Confucius, and I'll talk about that. I'll talk about why in a few seconds here. I want to explain this first. In quotes, it says mean people. It says they were at the bottom of Chinese society along with the mean people. All right. I know some of you in here, when you see that phrase "mean people," you think, "Mommy, he's called me a bad word. He's mean." No, that's not what we're talking about here. Okay, mean people are people who lack skills. Okay, so you can see some examples up here. Beggars, prostitutes. Okay, these are people who are skillless. Now, I know I'm offending my theater students because you see it up there right now. It says actors, okay? And my theater students are unhappy right now because I just said that they are skillless. They are without but they're without production skills, okay? That so yeah, you may have skills as an actor, but you're not producing anything, okay? And that's what we mean by this, okay? Yes. A musician. Musician. Good question. I'm not sure. Okay. I'm not sure. Now, so let me explain what's going on here, and let me explain why merchants are at the bottom. Hang on, just a minute. Okay. All right. So, in our world today, what determines your class? In our civilization here in the West, what determines your class? How much money you have. That's right. How much so the more money you have, the higher up you are, the less money you have, the lower you are. Okay? We have basically three classes, upper, middle, and lower. Okay. All right. And that's why this is going to be hard for you because typically people associate merchants with people who have money. Okay? Why are you a merchant? What's your goal? To get rich, to make money. Okay. All right. And so, but yet here it says that merchants were at the bottom of their social class. So guys, this money did not determine your class in China. Okay. And so let me explain how this works here. Okay. I'm a merchant. Okay. I'm a merchant. Here's what I do. This is how Confucius saw it. Okay. I'll 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 buy this from you. You want to sell it? You want? You know what? It's kind of ugly though. And it's kind of dirty. But you know what? I'll take it off your hands. Okay. I'll give you a little something for it. Okay. And so she decides to sell it to me. Okay. But what I'm doing though is I'm conning her. I'm tricking her into doing what? Selling it to me for a low price, less than it's worth. Okay. All right. And so I'm basically I'm stealing. I'm stealing in a way. I'm trying to trick her into selling this for less than it's worth. Okay. All right. And then I come over here. Okay. Hey, check this out. This cures cancer. Okay. And a matter of fact, if you hold it long enough, you will have immortality. Okay. All right. It's the latest, greatest thing. Okay? It's a one of its kind thing. Okay. I am going to con her. I'm gonna lie to her and trick her into buying this for what? More than it's worth. Exactly. Okay. More than it's worth. That's how I make a profit. That's how I make money. And by the way, she made this. She made this. She made it. She has production skills. She has production skills. Okay. All right. But I have tricked her into selling this. Okay. I've told her that it's ugly and really not very useful. Nobody's going to want it. All right. And I've tricked her to give it to me for less money than it's worth. And I'm going to come over here, convince this person here that it can do a lot more than what it can. All right. And so, why am I doing it? Okay. So am I helping anybody else? No. So in other words, my economic activity is for selfish reasons. Okay. Now, and so that's the reason why merchants are at the bottom because it's all about themselves. They're not helping the larger community right here. Okay. Uh, Guess who is above merchants? That normally we think of these people probably being pretty close to the bottom, but in China they're actually not at the top, but they're closer to the top than merchants. Farmers. That's exactly right. Farmers. Why? Why do you think in China farmers, which don't forget the other word for farmer is often peasant? Okay. Why are peasants farmers higher than merchants? Yes. That's right. A farmer is not farming just for himself. Okay. He's farming for his family and probably for the community too. Okay. So he's feeding others. And when you've got a large population like China has always had, feeding people's kind of important. Okay. All right. And so, all right. Now these people right here, this term is going to be with us for a good part of the school year. The scholar gentry. All right. Just that word gentry. Okay. That's your landowners, your aristocrats, your what you might think of as nobles. They own lots and lots of land. Okay. Scholar implies they're what? Educated. Good. Okay. And the scholar gentry, they are the people. Well, you know what? Somebody asked me earlier today, this right here. Okay. What they asked, what is a civil service exam? Okay. And so I asked them, if you are a civil servant, who do you work for? Good. That's right. And so if you're a civil servant, to get into the government, you have to do what? Take the exam. In China, China is the first civilization that we know of that created a test to get into the government. In most civilizations, it's like, who's your daddy? Oh, your daddy's important. Come on in here. There's your daddy counter right there. Somebody says they're going to count how many times I say daddy. But anyway, so in some societies, okay, it's important who your father is. But in China, what was important? What you know. Okay, what you know. Okay, and so, uh, but here's the thing, though. To pass this test, it was not easy. It was pretty much everything that Confucius ever taught. You pretty much had to memorize it. Okay, and which meant you had to be able to read. So first off, you can't be out there in the fields working. You got to be inside the house being tutored by somebody. Okay. And so only these people right here could typically afford to have their children tutored. And by the way, ladies, I am so sorry, but you're out of this equation. Okay. This exam right here is only for the men. Okay. There are no female civil servants in China. Okay. And so they're not taking the test. Okay. So, but in any, now, however, here's a cool thing. Here's a cool thing. Technically, a peasant could take this test. A male peasant could take this test. Technically, okay? So they weren't. It wasn't only for these people right here. Now, only these people are probably going to pass it. Okay, but there were very rare occasions where a peasant could take the test and pass it. Okay, for whatever reason, they were a savant or whatever. They were able to take the test and pass it. And if you took the test and passed it, your social standing climbed. Okay. Now tell me this. Is it possible in our society today for a homeless person to become a billionaire quickly? Yes, there is.
Oh, scamming.
No, not scamming. Not scamming. How could they do it quickly? The lottery. Okay. The lottery. Okay. So now tell me, is it likely? Okay. So when I tell you that male peasant children could take this test and pass it, okay, I mean, they were allowed to. They were allowed to take it. Okay. Passing it was about as likely as hitting the lottery. Okay? It did happen, but it was very rare. But still, it's really cool though for China, because in China there was some social mobility. Extremely rare, but it existed. Is there any social mobility in South Asia under the caste system? No, none. Okay, no social mobility under the caste system. So that's a difference that you might want to kind of hang on to right there. Okay, all right. So look here. These are the two systems kind of compared right here. Okay, there. You don't need to write this down, but you can see some similarities. So for example, these folks here, these are your educated people in India. These are your educated people in China. Okay, but now here's a difference. There's your farmers or your peasants in India. This is where they would be, down here. Okay, your merchants would be here. Okay, and now they're right here. Okay, okay, moving on. So social structures. Every one of these systems could be justified and explained by the people who supported it. The Greeks and the Romans, they would tell you, if you're a slave, you were meant to be a slave. You were born to be a slave. In India, under the caste system, if you're in a lower caste, there was a spiritual reason for it. There was a religious reason why you're in a lower caste. The Greeks and the Romans would say, we have to have slaves. We intellectuals, we upper class people, we have to think. We have to make the rules and the laws and the poetry. They make the things that we need. Now, Confucius, he used the family as a model for society. Tell me this, especially in China, who runs the family? Father. Good. That's right. Patriarchy. Good. Okay. And what do you think the children are supposed to do in regards to the father? Obey. That's right. We'll pick up here tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. I'll put this back up. Don't worry about it. You'll be good. It's okay. You're good.